The smell of hot steel and machine oil hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the work that powered this corner of Ohio. For Maria Rodriguez, it was more than just a scent, it was the perfume of her daily life, a sign she was where she belonged. For 12 years, Maria had clocked in at this auto parts factory, her hands expertly guiding sheets of metal into the hungry presses, her movements practiced and sure. The work was demanding, sometimes exhausting, but it was steady. It paid the mortgage, kept the lights on, and put her kids through school. Every dollar she earned was a step toward a better future for her family. This morning, however, the usual rhythm of the shift was interrupted. A sharp buzz from her foreman's phone cut through the clatter of machines, a news alert that made everyone pause. The Supreme Court had just blocked the big tariff plan that had been looming over the industry for months. For months, the proposed tariffs had divided the break room. Some workers saw them as a shield, a way to protect American jobs. Others, like Maria, remembered the last time costs soared and jobs were threatened, when friends and neighbors were laid off. The uncertainty was the worst part. It hung over them like a storm cloud, making every paycheck feel fragile, every plan for the future uncertain. Now, a definitive stop sign from the highest court in the land had arrived, halting the tariffs before they could take effect. Maria watched as some colleagues cheered, relief written on their faces, while others shook their heads, worried about what might come next. The division was palpable, the air thick with both hope and anxiety. For Maria and her coworkers, it wasn't just politics. It was about their livelihoods, the price of groceries, the rent, and their children's futures. Every decision made in Washington rippled all the way to their kitchen tables. The foreman approached, wiping grease from his hands, his face serious but calm. "Looks like things are about to get interesting," he said, his words hanging in the air. Maria knew he was right. The court's decision was more than just a headline. It was a tremor felt right there on the factory floor in every conversation and every worried glance. What would it mean for them? Would costs finally drop? Would jobs be safer? Or would new risks emerge? The questions buzzed through the factory, unanswered and urgent. The complex world of trade and law, usually distant, abstract, had crashed into their daily lives, reshaping their reality in an instant. Today, the Supreme Court had pulled a major thread in the fabric of their lives, sending vibrations in every direction and leaving everyone wondering what tomorrow would bring. To understand the Supreme Court's decision, we need to look at the policy at its center. The Trump administration had proposed a sweeping tariff plan, a universal 25% tariff on all imports, with rates up to 60% for certain countries, especially China. The goal? Protect American industries and workers by making imports more expensive, encouraging companies to reshore production and consumers to buy American. Supporters saw it as a shield for U.S. jobs. Critics warned it would spark a global trade war. Economists predicted retaliation, higher costs for businesses, and inflation for consumers. The plan split the country. Some cheered protectionism, others feared economic chaos. Even within the Republican Party, it created a rift between economic nationalists and free trade conservatives. The debate raged in Congress, town halls, and factory floors. This was the explosive context for the legal challenge. The legal battle was led by a coalition of American businesses, retailers, tech firms, and farmers, arguing the tariff plan was unconstitutional. Their case: only Congress can impose broad taxes and regulate foreign commerce, not the president. The administration countered that national security justified the tariffs, citing past laws granting the president some trade authority. But the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, sided with the businesses. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that the plan was too broad and untethered from any specific national security threat. The court ruled that such sweeping economic changes require clear legislation from Congress, not a unilateral executive order. The president's authority has limits. The plan was blocked. A tariff is a tax on imported goods. It's one of the oldest tools governments use to control trade and generate revenue. When a product crosses a border, the government can charge a fee. This is the tariff. For example, if the US puts a 20% tariff on Italian shoes, those shoes become more expensive for American buyers. The price tag you see in the store reflects not just the cost of the shoes, but also the added tariff. The goal is to make domestic products more attractive, boosting local industries and jobs. By making imports pricier, tariffs encourage shoppers to buy goods made at home. supporting American businesses and workers. But tariffs are a double-edged sword. While they can help some industries, they can also create new problems for others. Countries hit with tariffs often retaliate, taxing American exports like soybeans or airplanes. This back and forth can quickly escalate into a trade dispute. This can hurt U.S. farmers and manufacturers who rely on foreign markets. When exports drop, jobs and profits can be at risk, especially in industries that depend on selling overseas. Tariffs also raise prices for consumers, since importers pass the extra cost along. Everyday items, from groceries to electronics, can become more expensive. If you can't find a domestic alternative, you simply pay more. Sometimes, certain products just aren't made locally, leaving shoppers with no choice but to absorb the higher cost. This can fuel inflation and squeeze household budgets. Over time, families may notice their money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. For businesses using imported parts, tariffs mean higher production costs and less competitiveness. Companies may have to raise their own prices or cut back on hiring. Trade wars, when countries keep raising tariffs on each other, can damage all economies involved. Global supply chains get disrupted and uncertainty can slow down investment and growth. In the end, tariffs are paid by consumers and can ripple through the entire economy. The effects are felt not just at the checkout, but in jobs, wages, and even the prices of unrelated goods. They're meant to protect, but often come with unintended consequences. Sometimes the very people tariffs are supposed to help end up paying the price. That's why they're so controversial. Tariffs spark debate among politicians, businesses, and consumers alike, making them a hot topic in global economics. The Supreme Court's decision does more than block one policy. It redraws the map for American trade. For decades, presidents have gained power over trade. This ruling puts Congress back in charge. Policies passed through Congress require debate and compromise, making them more stable and predictable. International partners may now see U.S. trade policy as more reliable. In the short term, free trade advocates celebrate. The threat of massive tariffs is gone, and relationships with allies may improve. But the debate over protectionism isn't over. Concerns about jobs and competition remain. The fight over trade will now play out in Congress, not the Oval Office. Expect new legislation, targeted tariffs, and renewed debates over America's economic future. The focus shifts from presidential power to legislative action. The Supreme Court's ruling will ripple through the economy, affecting businesses, workers, and consumers. For companies relying on imports, it's a relief. No sudden cost spikes, no forced layoffs. Export-dependent workers like farmers and aerospace engineers are protected from likely foreign retaliation. But for those in industries competing with cheap imports, the ruling may feel like a setback. For shoppers, the biggest impact is avoiding widespread price hikes on everyday goods. Blocking the tariffs helps keep inflation in check and preserves purchasing power. Businesses, freed from uncertainty, can now invest and hire with more confidence. The decision brings stability, encouraging growth and job creation. Not everyone is satisfied, but the economic landscape is clearer. The ruling doesn't solve every problem, but it prevents sudden shocks. For now, American families and businesses can plan for the future. The debate over trade's winners and losers continues. Experts remain deeply divided on the Supreme Court's recent decision, with passionate arguments on both sides of the issue. Mainstream economists, such as Dr. Evelyn Reed, have praised the ruling, insisting that tariffs are a blunt and outdated tool that often do more harm than good in today's interconnected world. They point to history, citing examples like the Smoot-Hawley tariff, which many believe worsened the Great Depression by raising prices and triggering international retaliation. According to them, tariffs can lead to trade wars, higher costs for consumers, and economic instability. Free trade advocates argue that open markets are the engine of innovation and lower prices, benefiting consumers and businesses alike. They believe that instead of shielding industries, the focus should be on retraining and supporting workers who are displaced by global competition, preparing them for new opportunities. On the other hand, economic nationalists like Michael Stoddard contend that decades of free trade have hollowed out American industry, leading to the loss of millions of good-paying jobs and weakening entire communities. For them, tariffs are not just about economics, they're a matter of national security and a necessary step toward rebuilding America's manufacturing strength and independence. They argue that a robust domestic base and resilient supply chains are far more important than simply having access to cheap imported goods. especially in uncertain times. Supporters of this view believe that paying higher prices is a reasonable trade-off for protecting American jobs and ensuring economic sovereignty, even if it means some short-term sacrifices. Ultimately, the debate goes far beyond economics. It's about values, priorities, and the future direction of the country. It raises fundamental questions about what kind of nation America aspires to be. The Supreme Court's decision guarantees that this vital national conversation will continue for years to come, shaping policy and public opinion alike. This Supreme Court decision is a landmark because it answers a fundamental question: who sets America's economic direction? By blocking the president's tariff plan, the court reaffirmed that Congress holds the power to regulate trade and taxes. It's a major rebalancing of power between the executive and legislative branches. For global trade, it signals a return to more predictable, rules-based policy. The ruling reassures allies and stabilizes international relationships. For Americans, it prevents sudden cost spikes and protects export-dependent jobs. Civically, it ensures big economic changes are debated by elected representatives, not imposed by executive order. The debate over globalization and protectionism is far from over. The Supreme Court didn't settle it, but clarified who gets to decide. A new chapter in America's trade story begins. The future of global trade remains complex, but the Supreme Court's decision offers a clearer path. Sweeping executive actions may be over, but the issues behind them persist. Now, policy will be shaped by democratic debate. Your voice matters more than ever. Businesses must adapt, building resilient supply chains and investing in domestic production. The U.S. can now focus on targeted, collaborative trade strategies with allies. Expect new agreements on digital trade, environmental standards, and reforms to global institutions. The goal balance efficiency with security and prosperity with fairness. The era of simple free trade is over. The future is about smart, strategic policy. The Supreme Court has set the stage for a national conversation. Now the real work begins.